The Alabaster Lord's Sword is a unique weapon that often goes under the radar. It's found in the Lake of Rot by raising 2 platforms and defeating an Alabaster Lord. Getting to the Lake of Rot requires you to first kill Radahn. Then you either need to progress Randy's questline or beat the Valiant Gargoyles. On the surface, it's a low-range greatsword with no redeeming features. It has lower attack rating than its competitors, the Helfin Steeple and Darkmoon Greatsword, and its weapon skill is a slightly larger gravitas and cannot be changed out. However, with a deeper look, we find it has a very strong feature, its heavy attack. To fully understand it, however, we need to take a look at its motion values. Motion values are a percentage multiplier to tell the game how much damage an attack should do relative to the weapon's attack rating. Typically, a one-handed light attack has a motion value of 100, which means it deals exactly as much damage as is shown in the menu, before defenses are applied. Most greatswords have motion values of 130 and 165 for two-handed uncharged and charged heavies respectively. The Alabaster Lord's Sword, however, beats them with a slightly better 138 and a whopping 215 for the charged heavy, the latter being 30% higher than your average greatsword. The disparity with the one-handed motion values is not as large, however, so you should always use the Alabaster Lord's Sword two-handed. On top of the damage being absurdly high, the stamina costs are absurdly low. The charged heavy costs as much as an average greatsword's light attack, and the uncharged version only half of that. These insanely low costs let you take full advantage of every punish window bosses provide, without having to compromise. Lastly, the poise damage is also wacky, although that's not necessarily a positive. A normal greatsword does about 36 poise damage on the two-handed charged heavy. Alabaster Lord's Sword, however, only deals 33, which is lower, but if you chain a second heavy attack, that deals a massive 44. In total, the two combined will do more than a regular greatsword would do. And a clever way to exploit this, on certain openings of bosses, is to first use an uncharged heavy, and then chain it immediately into a charged heavy to take advantage of the higher poise damage. But how do you build Alabaster Lord's Sword? Well, on a leveled character, you first want to meet the minimum requirements, mainly the 18 intelligence. Once you have that covered, we want to start putting points into strength for damage. Don't forget about your defensive stats, such as vigor. Endurance will not be very helpful for the stamina cost, because they're already so low. However, you still get the equivalent, so you can put on heavier armor. After 60 strength, which is your main damage source, you should start putting points into dexterity, not intelligence, as it's simply not worth it. In your talisman slots on a level build, you'll want the Axe Talisman for 10% more damage on charge attacks, and probably the Ritual Sword Talisman, especially if you're good at keeping at max health. In the Flask of Wondrous Physic, you can use the Spiked Cracked Tear, which increases your charge attack damage by another 15%. On top of that, using the Strength Nut Crystal Tear can give you a bit more strength for stat scaling as well. Lastly, the other 2 talisman slots, you can use whatever you want. You can use the strength or something defensive. On the level 1 character, you're going to need to sacrifice some talisman slots and your helmet slot to meet the requirement. 18 intelligence is pretty harsh. The Twin Sage Glintstone Crown in combination with Marika's Scar Seal is enough to get you there. But as you progress, it becomes better to use the Stargazer Heirloom and the Queen's Crescent Crown instead. This way, you have a lot less weight, and then you can take full advantage of that using the Blue Dancer Charm. Lastly, you want to use a Red Feathered Branch Sword, or Ritual Sword Talisman, depending on whether you're doing your fight at minimum health or at full health. As mentioned before, Alabaster Lord's Sword is located in the Lake of Rot. The exact location is a bit tricky, so I've recorded how to get there. The Mushroom Armor is best for resistance to Scarlet Rot, and the Immunizing Horn Charm helps as well. You can use Flame Cleanse Me to get rid of the Scarlet Rot buildup. It only requires 12 faith, and as such, even on level 1, you only need the 2 Fingers Heirloom Talisman to meet the requirement. Preserving Boluses are even better and don't have any requirement, although they are limited. They're useful for the final stretch in particular. For the fight against the Alabaster Lord, I recommend using a greatsword or a similarly sized weapon. He's very prone to getting staggered on every hit, so you can simply hit him 3 or 4 times, back off, and re-engage. This makes the fight much simpler than if you have to find openings without being able to stagger him. All in all, the Alabaster Lord Sword is a very strong weapon choice for challenge running in particular, especially on +0, due to the high damage per hit of the charged heavies. It gets past defenses rather easily, letting you do massive damage on bosses per window. You also have low stamina cost, allowing to optimize every single opening to the full potential. I hope you enjoyed this weapon showcase. I hope to make more in the future. Thanks for watching. Please say Alabaster Lord Sword.
Alabaster Lord Sword.